Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Oh, vroom, vroom, Jackie. We've got quite a guest and a fun chat today, and it is going to be so fun. This is fun chat number 176. Woohoo! And we just keep gaining speed as we are recording these wonderful stories of the 1950s. So take it away, sister.
There are several puns in there that maybe our audience does not know were puns, but I caught them. So the reason is this. Viewers, do some of you remember the cool cars of the 50s and 60s? And did any of you dream of owning a cool car? Well, our guest is living his dream hundreds and hundreds of times over. Jim Remlinger is a classic car enthusiast who owns the Remlinger Collector Car Museum and co-owns the Remlinger Collector Car Auctions in Winona, Minnesota. The Collector Car Auction House specializes in American muscle cars, hot rods, and custom cars. And so, Jim, we welcome you and your knowledge to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Thank you.
So the first question is, Jim, what constitutes a muscle car?
High performance. Back in the early 60s, high performance cars came with the big engines and the I guess I'd say the cheaper body styles. They weren't loaded like say take a Chevrolet. They had the Biscayne, which was more of a sports car, but a muscle car. And then the Impala was more all dressed out with all the chrome and all the extra goodies on them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And were there muscle cars in the 1950s?
Yeah, there probably were considered some. Some of the old Dodge and Chryslers had pretty good sized motors in them, but they really didn't start calling them muscle cars until I would say probably 61, 62 is when that era really came out.
Okay. Jackie, I remember you dated a guy who had was it 57 Chevy?
It was a 57 Chev, white and yellow, and it was a hot car.
and I know you'd go to drag race, quarter mile drag.
Well, no, we just dragged Maine.
Oh, okay. I suppose as a lot of kids did in that era.
That's right.
Well, now, Jim, you've got this wonderful museum. You do excellent work in getting these older cars souped up and looking just shiny and working just so excellently. What from the 50s helped you to have this desire to do this with your life?
I that's all I ever liked was cars. I started out probably as a kid putting model cars together, which
Okay.
Today, how many kids put model cars together? How many times can you go to a like back in the day when you had Woolworths and Kresge's and all that, you could walk in there and you could buy a model car. Today, you have to almost order it online. They're not available anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I started out with, putting model cars together and just got interested in cars. And that I always tell everybody that's all I ever knew. I didn't know nothing else.
Okay.
And we kind of lived on the outskirts of town. So I would jump in my mom and dad's car and drive it up and down the road because we're on the end of the city and nobody bothers. So I would, I was probably 14, 15 when I was driving around. I even went to town a couple of times when I didn't even have a license and they didn't really bother you back then. But I've been in cars ever since.
Did you have a buddy who shared that experience with you?
Oh, yeah, I had several of them. We all did the same thing. We all hung together. There was probably half a dozen of us that thought and did the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And was this in the Winona area?
Right. In Winona, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Minnesota. Okay.
And then your education, you went through elementary school, junior high.
Yep.
Then what?
Well, I hated school. I was so bad in school, I even failed gym class because I wouldn't even take my uniforms to school. I never took a paper and pen to class. Every time I go to class and teacher would ask me where my stuff was. I didn't bring it. I don't need it. And all this year, back down the office. I always said I was in the office more than the principal.
Maybe. Okay. So how did that
I went,
non-education, a formal education then?
well,
influence you?
I went through 8th grade in the first quarter of 9th grade. And my last day in the 9th grade, actually a teacher fell off her chair and I was the only one in class laughing. So she sent me down to the office, and I go down to the office and the principal says, "Now what's your problem?" Well, I said, "I don't like your teachers. I don't like your lunch program. And I don't even like you. And I don't want to be here." And well, I was only 15. And well, he said, "You're too young to quit." Well, I said, something has to happen, because I absolutely would not do nothing in class or anything. And I finally had to talk my mom and dad to sign me out. And, they didn't care for it at first, but I told them, "You're wasting your time and money on me." So they signed me out, and the principal said, "We hope you don't hang around school and entice anybody else to do the same thing you're doing." I said, "Buddy, you'll never see me again." And I moved to Chicago and lived with my grandma and start working in an old drugstore when I was 15, and then just start doing all kinds of odd jobs from there on, but still hung around the car stuff and went to old drag strips and old car dealerships and stuff like that.
Who was influential in your life then in Chicago, in the Chicago area?
I would say there was a Dodge dealer there, which was called Grand Spalding Dodge. It was Mr. Norm's. And we had bicycles, so we only lived about 6-7 blocks from there. So I would hop on my bicycle and ride up there, and he'd let us, the kids, hang out in the garage and watch them work on cars and all that stuff. And, as long as we stayed out of the way, because he said, "You guys are going to be our future customers." And I owned probably 3-4 of his cars. I owned his original drag race cars and that. And he since passed away probably, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's how I got hooked up on. If you'll come to my museum, you'll see I have mostly Mopars, and that's because I hung around the Dodge dealer. I like all cars, but I'm kind of partial to the Mopar stuff.
So you went from building model cars, to, in your young teenage years, going to Chicago and hanging around the Dodge dealer. And now you have a car museum that features classics, muscle cars, hot rods, memorabilia. Can you tell us about the development of that museum?
Well, I've had cars all my life, and I'd have, I got different buildings around, and I'd have a car in this garage and a car here and a couple at home, and they were kind of all around. And I bought a small building downtown in Winona here, and it would hold about 10 cars. And so we start, putting our cars in there and getting some memorabilia and putting some of the stuff we had. And we kind of ran out of room, and a friend of mine needed a building because a Fastenal company was buying up their property, and he needed another garage. Well, I said, "Well, I ain't got nowhere to go." And then on the other end of town, there was a UBC lumber company that was empty for a couple of years, and it was 30,000 square feet on a little over 4.5 acres. And I said, "God, I don't need nothing this big." So I went and looked at it, and I go, "You know what, this might work." And so, and I mean, it was so big then there, I thought I was going to rent half of it out and you just use the front part and store my cars. And I had no intention of opening a museum, but I just started putting all my stuff in and laying all out. And the Visitors Bureau in town came out and wanted to see what I was doing. And they said, "You got to open this up, let the public see this." And I said, "Well, I still got a real job. I ain't going to spend a lot of time out here. My cars are just going to be stored here." And so they start talking about that, and I'll think about it. So I start putting everything together. Well, now I'm out of room. It's too small.
Yes. What was the first car you ever purchased?
Oh God! Actually, my first one, I was probably maybe just turned 15. I bought a '46 Ford from a neighbor, and played around with that for a little bit and drove that. And then I had a coin collection even way back then. I saved all the time on different coins, and I traded that for an old '37 Chrysler. And then I got rid of that and bought another car. And then in '67, my first real car, a good car, was a '66 Charger, which I still own yet.
What color?
Silver car, black interior, 4-speed car.
Yes.
So Jim, are there certain models or makes that your customers prefer? What do they, when they request you, what do they request to see? And also what do they request to purchase?
Oh, now you're talking for the auction?
Yes, we can do
Because
that.
I don't sell any of my cars.
You sell them in auction.
No, not my cars.
Oh, not your cars.
No,
What
I
do
don't
you
sell them on my cars. No.
What do you sell at auction?
We consigners bring cars in, and we get about 325 cars at our auction each auction, and they're all consigned from all over Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois, North, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa. So we get them from all over. We got pretty much the whole Midwest. We get them hauled in too.
Okay.
Do you have requirements for how those cars need to look, or what condition they're in before they can be in your car auction?
Yes, they need to run on their own and be able to start and drive across the block. When we first started out, we were getting stuff we had to push, and then we found out that's just not working. So we have them submit a picture to us first, so we can look at the car and say, yeah, this is worthy of the auction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we
So
do turn
all
down
of
a few of them once in a while.
Okay. You have memorabilia in your museum. Can you tell us how you acquire that and what kind of memorabilia do you have?
Oh, I got some original neons. I got some reproductions. I got some original porcelain signs. I got reproductions. A little of everything is in there. There's pedal cars in there. There's bicycles in there. There's go-karts in there. I picked up a bunch of vintage go-karts, I believe 7 or 8 of them over in Paris, France at an auction. And like a Mercedes, a Lamborghini, some Ferraris, pretty rare over here. You don't see them over here much. So we have those and bicycles, a bicycle collection that is there. We have about 50 of them. And that's a friend of mine that has all the bicycles in there. And we get a lot of interest to see those bikes. I mean, we got bicycles in there from 1895 up till probably, I don't know, mid 1960s probably.
So why bicycles? Why not just cars?
Well, that's what I said when the guy come to me. He said, "Would you like to have some bicycles in your collection?" I go, "Well, we just want muscle cars in here." And so I said, "Well, we'll try it." And then I said, "Well, if you want to put some on long-term loan, I will build a bicycle shop." So we have like a Main Street in that building too, which has a bicycle shop. And we have a bank in there, a barber shop, a hot rod shop, and then a Packard dealership in there. And
Packard dealership?
A Packard.
Packard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have some Packard cars there as well? Then
I own a 32 Packard Phaeton myself. Yeah, which is a very nice car. Yeah.
Yes. Well, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, were you going to say something, Jim?
No, I'm just trying to think here. Go ahead there.
Okay. Well, when you get in the car and go downtown and get some groceries or something, or maybe you go to the next town, do you have a favorite car that you just hop in?
I don't. We used to take them to the car shows and all that, but now that we got them in there, we don't take them out much because it's a lot of work. And but I have, I like a daily driver. I have a Dodge Viper and I got a Challenger that I drive daily. And then I got a Ferrari, a 458 Ferrari.
Where in this line of cars did the best or the better gas mileage start?
Boy. Well, it wasn't in the high performance cars, that's for sure. They didn't get very good mileage.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose then you'd be looking at some of the Toyotas when they first came to market, which was probably the better gas mileage cars or economy cars, if you want to call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when did that happen? When did Toyotas become popular?
Oh God, I didn't keep up on that foreign stuff, but I would say early 70s is probably when we start seeing that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim, I know at one time we had a guest on the Fun Chat, and he talked about being involved with car clubs in the 1950s. He and his buddies started this car club. Do you know anything about those car clubs, or were you involved with something like that?
No, we had a group in town here that had a car club back in the 50s. I was just actually talking to one of the guys the other day. They still kind of meet. They have a little reunion every year. But there were some probably 20 guys in that group that had old cars and hung out together and worked in garages on their cars and stuff like that. But today they do have some so-called car clubs, but I don't think they're like they were in the 50s.
I would imagine that in the 50s, there would have been a little rock and roll music playing on the radio. There would have
That's
been
all they had.
slick back hair, leather jackets,
Right.
perhaps.
Yeah.
T-shirts with the sleeve rolled up with
Cigarettes.
the pack of cigarettes.
Right. Right.
And their favorite girl riding with them
Right.
in
Right.
those cars. Yes, that was quite a story in the 50s. We were I was too young to realize that, but it's a great story to honor from that decade. Jim, if you were to live your life over again, would it be any different?
You know what? I always said I'll never trade my years for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still true?
When I lived in Chicago, we lived in a pretty rough area, and it was not a real nice area. And I still never had no problems there, and I wouldn't trade those days for nothing.
Mm-hmm. How do you advise young people, whether they're young boys or young girls, if they're interested in cars and restoring cars? How do you advise them as far as learning the trade?
Yeah, the problem today is, there's a lot of single families. And they don't have a dad that is into the cars. And if they don't, they're not exposed to any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They, they're not, they're just brought up on computers and they got, I know they got blinders on them. If you're going to be a car person, we see it here. If we hire some young kid, if you're not really into cars, you struggle at learning this business, doing collision or mechanical repairs. If you really want to get into it, you got to do it on your own. You got to want to really love cars and really want to be around them. And that's your life.
Do you find that courses in mechanics are helpful?
A little bit, but again, I was on the advisory board here for probably, 30 years for the auto body at the Votech school. And there's a lot of guys that'll sign up for mechanics or auto body, and they just think it's cool class to go to. But if you're not really into cars, just because you go to that doesn't mean you can be a good body man or a good mechanic. Mm-hmm. If it's not in your blood and you want to do that, it ain't gonna happen. You'll struggle all the time.
Were there ever any females in those classes that you saw?
Yes, there are. There's a couple. They get one or two every year.
Mm-hmm.
We had one girl here, it's been quite a few years ago now. She was going to auto body, was very good. She was going to be a very good student, but she was riding on a motorcycle with her boyfriend and got in a bad accident and messed her all up. And so I don't know whatever happened to her. She moved out of the area and stuff. But there are some girls. In fact, the mechanics at vocational school here has a girl instructor in school, and she's working hard at keeping everybody in there.
Okay.
Just because, like I say, just because you want to be an our body man or you want to be a mechanic doesn't mean you can be one, even if you take the class. A good example, I got a grandson, and he was a scholar at the state college here and played football, and he just didn't like the politics in the college, so he quit. And we didn't even know it. And he went to at the vocational school, signed up for auto body for 2 years, and 11-month course, or 2 years now it is. It was 11 months when I went, and he went through the whole course and came out here and worked with me for 2 years, and I could just tell, he never was a car guy, and I could just tell he was, he did a great job, he did a good job, but it just wasn't his thing. And I told him, what, you need to go do what you want. Don't do it because of me.
Yeah.
You go find your own. I go, you go find what you really like. And he moved to Minneapolis, and he's got buddies up there, and he got a job up there, and he just loves it up there.
Good. Do you ever have any hot trucks come into your museum?
Oh yeah. We get hot rod pickup trucks and all that. Yeah.
And starting at what vintage?
Oh God, we've had them from 1915 to 2000, whatever.
Yes.
So we get Model Ts in there, we get Model A's, we get a lot of estates where the old guy probably had an old collection for years, and he passed away, and the wife don't want nothing, In fact, we at one of our auctions, we had there was an estate sale up in Duluth, Minnesota, and their dad passed away, and the daughter and son came to us, and they had, I believe, 8 cars. It was like a 1904 Cadillac, or 1905 Cadillac, a 1904 Sears car. 1903 Sears still had a horse-drawn buggy. 1904 they put a motor on it, so they had a buggy with a motor on it, and then they had a 32 and a 16 Model T and a couple other cars, an old Maxwell, and we sold all those cars over to Belgium at our auction. We shipped them all over there.
Yes. Yes.
And we sold cars in Finland. We sold cars in Germany. We sold cars in Sweden with the auction. With the internet and the auction, it's like it's next door. It's the world's small.
Mm-hmm. And we have the internet to thank you right now, or to thank for this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do you have you had international visitors or buyers on site at your auction?
Oh, yes. In fact, last year at our auction, we had 11 cars shipped in from Sweden, some 57, 8, and 9, and 60 Chrysler cars. They were kind of high performance and rare cars. And we sold all of them cars from Sweden, and they flew over here for the auction and very happy. In fact, this last fall, last spring, they sent us another car over, and we sold that one for them too.
Nice.
So yeah, they're very happy. Yeah.
So would you tell me, when did this museum open?
Well, I've had the building 8 years, and I probably worked on it for 2 years, 2.5 years, just getting it ready and cleaning it up at the place. What it was an old lumber yard. It was a UBC lumber yard, and we gutted it all out and cleaned everything up and painted it and did stuff to the walls and built a main street in there. And
so did the auctions come before or after the museum?
After. Yeah, after. In fact, I was never intended to get into auctions, but another guy, I used to rent out the back part for an auction. Another company had it, and they were all done with it. And one of the partners in it came to me and says, would you be interested in running an auction or taking on this auction with me? And well, I said, I'd never been in it. And so we kind of made a deal. And so me and my son and Dave Hanner is the other partner in there. So the three of us own the auction part of it. And it's been growing every time we have one. We're up to about 325 cars in auction, plus a lot of memorabilia.
Wow.
And is this happen once a year or more than
twice? In Winona, we have it twice a year in Winona.
Okay.
Spring and fall. And then this last July, we had a family in Omaha, Nebraska, that their dad passed away, and he had 40 cars. And a lot of cars he bought were really nice. And he was a pathologist out of the Omaha, Nebraska hospital. And we had people that worked with him come out because we had a 2-day viewing site for these cars. And they came out just to see the cars because he would never let anybody at his place. And they knew we collected cars, but they never knew what. And a couple of guys that sold them nice cars. They were nice cars, drivers, like a 48 Jaguar. I mean, really nice stuff. And he'd take them all apart and put all the pieces all over the place. He never put them back together. He just tore them all apart. So he also had about 6 or 7 Porsches that were some pretty nice cars. In fact, he had one on jack stands for 35 years, and all in parts. And when we looked at the collection, we told the family, that's the Porsches are going to bring some pretty good money. And we had 2,400 registered bidders online for those cars. And they went all over. They went to California, they went to Florida, they went to Alabama, they went to the East Coast.
Do you find that the foreign cars are more of a draw in this country?
No. It's really a funny market. I mean, some days, maybe this spring, the pickups will be hot. And then maybe fall, nobody will want to pick up and they'll want a certain model of a car. They all go in kind of streaks. The latest stuff, is like the new Chrysler products, the high performance Dodges that they're putting out. Those were very hard to get, and everybody was after them. Now it's kind of filling the void. So they kind of tapered off. But say those cars, when they came out, they listed for 100 and I think 15 or 20,000. some dealers were getting 100,000 over sticker for them
Oh.
if you could get one.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they're back down to about 135, 140,000. You can buy one anywhere. But when
Okay.
those kind of cars come out, everybody wants to be first to have it.
Is it usually a collector who's buying these cars, or when they're sold, or do you think are they going to be out on the streets?
Some are for collectors. Will buy a couple, but most guys try to get in early and buy them to flip them to pick
Oh,
up 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever it may be.
sure.
Yeah, so you got a little of both. You got collectors and you got flippers, I guess you'd call them.
Well, in the 50s, I think particularly, there were so many cars that were just cool colors. The
Yeah.
color combinations. And is there a certain color combination that will bring more from the 50s that will bring more dollars on an auction than others?
A black car will. A black car brings money no matter what. A black car will. A good black car will always bring more money.
Oh.
And a low mileage. The miles is, if you got a collector car and you got hardly any miles, that brings the most money.
Yes. I believe you have some pictures to show us on your phone of a couple cars, classic cars, I think they are. They're beautiful.
Here's a picture of one.
Okay, let me give you a full screen here. Oh, now what is that?
Or not.
And this is what kind?
That's a 64 Dodge aluminum front car. They only made about 50 of them cars.
And it's a two-door.
Two-door, yeah. It's for drag racing only. It's a not a streetable car. Although the guys did buy them and put them on the streets.
And are they insured? Can they be insured?
You can once you go through the paperwork and everything else, you can. And that was the drag race version of it, and this would be the street version of it. This is the black one, almost the same, but it's a smaller motor.
Well, there certainly is a difference in the appearance if you want a hot car or not.
Right. And here's kind of a one that's made up like a hot rod.
Oh, so is that a decal on the side?
Yeah, those are just a decal, but even back in the days, a lot of guys put decals on the side. They always named their cars something. And
yes. And this is this a Dodge Dart also?
No, it's a Dodge 330. They called it, not a Dart. The Dart is a smaller car.
Okay. Was there? Did you have a Cadillac to show
Yes,
us?
I was trying to find that picture.
Okay. Now, did you restore all these cars then that you're showing us?
Not those. I got several that we did restore, but some of them we did not. Here's one that we restored for another customer.
Oh, jeepers! Tell us about that.
That is what you would call a funny car.
I should say.
But it was a fiberglass body on a chassis, and you built them just for drag racing.
And what year is that vehicle?
That would be early 60s, and it's a cheetah body. They called it a cheetah body. It was like a fiberglass aftermarket body you could buy and kind of what you'd call a kit car you could put together.
Yes. Huh. Wow, look at the tires on that thing in the back.
Yeah, and then here's another one I've had for quite a few years, probably 20 years. That's a 66 Plymouth Hemi car, the big motor. That's original car with 15,000 miles on, original paint, original tires, original interior.
Did the Chrysler Corporation cars, were they kind of the more popular muscle cars, collector cars?
They were the cars to always beat. They pretty much ruled everything. Here's a bike shop that we built.
Oh, yes.
That's in the museum also.
Do you have a filling station in your museum?
Yeah, I don't know if I got that picture handy or not. I might be able to find it, and then here's one we restored, which was, I told you earlier, a 53 Olds Fiesta.
Okay.
That was probably considered a high performance car back in its day because they had a big motor and multiple carbs, and I believe
And
there was like 480 of these cars made, somewhere in that number.
what did this car look like when it came to you?
It didn't run. You had to pull it around. It was pretty tacky looking. The interior seats were all gone. Interior was all shot, no top. All the chrome had to be done. I mean, that got a total restoration.
So when you restore these cars, do you restore them as to exactly how they would have looked at coming off the line when they were built?
Yes.
So I noticed some cars have white walls. Are those tires more expensive?
Yeah. Today you can buy about any tire that was on those back in those 60 cars, but yeah, they are very expensive today. They're back then they were fairly cheap back then, but today they're not cheap. You can spend $300-400 a tire just to have the look of the 60s.
Yeah.
Which would be important.
Well, yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you're going to do it right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Just see if I can come up with
Is your preference or do you have a preference to collect a classic car versus a muscle car, high performance car?
I like all cars. But I'm partial, as you can tell, I'm partial to the Dodges.
That's your early education.
Right. That's because I hung in that area. Here's one that my son restored, a 57 Cadillac Baritz.
Okay, let me give you the screen here. Oh, is this silver color?
Silver with a gray top and a silver leather interior.
And
that's a 57 Baritz, Cadillac Baritz.
oh,
They made 1,800 of those, and we restored number 1 and number 1,800.
Oh, how fortunate!
And we sold them. And we built them cars back then, and we sold them to the guy in Detroit. Here's the interior look of that car.
yes, that's the thing about convertibles back in the 50s, 60s. You could seat some people in them. It wasn't just a two-seat.
Right. I mean, they had style. I mean, look at the back end of that car.
Oh, the fins.
Yes.
How cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about the VIN numbers. And some cars had VIN numbers, most cars, but not all.
All your cars got VIN numbers except some of the race cars, which do not. They come without a VIN number. We've got a couple of cars in our place that even today they have what they call a drag pack, Dodge drag pack for 2021, and it has no VIN number. They only made 50 of those cars, and those cars you had to be a sanctioned drag team guy to own one to be able to buy them from Chrysler. And we had my son had a engineer from back in the Dodge days that was able to get one, and that's how we obtained it. And all those cars, when they put them online to sell to the people that had the number to have to get okay to buy one, they all sold out like in 3-4 hours.
So Jim, when someone comes to you with a car that needs to be updated, let's put it that way, do you just, especially if it's a Dodge, do you just itch to get into it, to start making it into a car that's drivable and a showcase car?
I mean, like if somebody comes to us and wants them restored?
Yes. Are you anxious to get in and start the process?
Oh, in a way, I've been in 54 years, so it's kind of wearing out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy being around the stuff. Today, it's just so hard to come up with the extra people to do that. We have a few cars that we're trying to finish up right now. In fact, we have a 1948 Talbot Lago, which we went over to Paris and bought about 5 years ago. And it's the Princess of Egypt. It's her car. We have all the paperwork and stuff, all the paperwork and everything, and it needs a total restoration. That car sat like, I believe it was 50 some years in a building, and we bought it at auction, and we're totally restoring it. She is in fact still living in Paris. She's about 80, I believe probably 85, 86 right now. And we're hoping to get it done so we could take this to one of the major car shows like in Monterey, California, and fly her over and unveil it for us.
Oh, cool.
Yes, how fun that would be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jim, yeah, when I asked you to be a guest on our fun shed, I said 30 minutes. That's all we need is 30 minutes of your time. We're way over that.
I told you, that won't get you started.
Are there any other pictures of cars you'd like to show us?
Oh, I'm just trying to come up with, it's so hard. I might find them on my phone here.
Yes. How do people become aware of your museum, and how do they have to make an appointment to come and visit? Is there a charge to come? How does that all work out?
Yeah. At first, well, we had car clubs contact us, and we'd get car clubs in the summer, and tour buses stop in with people. But we just lately took out Facebook ads and put it on there, and we're getting more and more people to find us that way. Mm-hmm. And we charge $10 a person to come through. And we donate every year to the Freedom Honor Flight through the BFW. Mm-hmm. And then you got to be an appointment because I'm not there all the time. So, it ain't like it's not like I'm open every day there. So okay. I just, if somebody calls with a half a dozen people, I'll go and open up. Or if I'm usually around here on Saturdays, and a lot of people will stop down then. Well, and then we also been doing events there now. So we're all set up for Christmas, and we've been doing a lot of Christmas parties there.
Yes. Oh, that'd be a fun place to have an event.
Yeah. It's pretty cool setup there.
Okay. Well, Jim, I'm going to ask you one final question in our chat. If you had to do this all over again, would you?
Start over everything like I did?
Your life. If you had to do this all over again, is this what you'd do?
I would think so. I always said if I probably finished school, I probably could have been the president.
The president of what?
I don't know. but yeah, I don't know what I would change. I really don't. I mean, it's been great. And the other thing with young kids, like I said earlier, most of them don't put their time in. They don't want to pay their dues. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to pay your dues and do what you want, and like say, everybody wants my time now. And like I said, I tell these kids, I don't know what my time is anymore. I never did know. I worked every day. When I first started out in the body shop, I worked probably 12 to 15, 16 hours a day, every day of the week for almost 18 years. Every Saturday, Sundays, and all. If we go to the in-laws for dinner on Christmas or Thanksgiving, I go there for 2 or 3 hours, and I go right back to my shop and work. And that's what I did. Because I said I never knew nothing else but working on cars.
Sure.
Now that's a passion. Now that's a passion for it.
That's
and
right.
I always tell the groups that come through, how many years would do that? I said, just take, I said, just take 3 or 4 years. Just take 3 or 4 years and don't worry about your friends, because your friends ain't going to do nothing for you. I said, just get a job, and just, if you're off half the day, get 2 jobs, get another part-time, get a full-time and a part-time, and just work for 3 years and put money away and save it. And I don't know if you know Gordon, or was it Gordon Ramsay, that financial guy?
Gordon Ramsay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like his quote. Live today like nobody else, so later in life you can live like nobody else.
That's a good way to end our fun chat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jim Remlinger, Winona, Minnesota. We thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today and to tell your story. Jackie, how can you close our program today?
Well, viewers, thanks for joining us, and do take note of the book that's up in the corner here of my screen, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s. And you'll find a great story there about rural life, no matter what state it happens to be in. So until next time.
Where's that book available at?
That book is available online at if you go to our website, www.whilethewindmillwatch.com, then you will see that our international and national distributor, North Dakota State University Bookstore, will be happy to send it to you. And it's a nice gift, under $20. Maybe your wife would like it for Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Thank you. So until next
Sounds
time, tell your friends, even your relatives, about this 1950s fun chat.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. All right.
Bye-bye.